Parry Lodge, I was at 13 years old, I was a yard boy there. I was a bus boy. I remember busing James Arnezz's table there. And then I became the assistant chef, which means I peeled potatoes and shucked shrimp and cleaned grills and stuff like that. And so basically from time 13, 14, 15, I worked at Parry Lodge. My dad was involved in the ownership of it back in the 70s. I guess that's how I got the job. Anyway, so I want to tell you a little bit about it. And so that is, I think it's kind of cool that that picture was a postcard and they took it and look at the Photoshop job they did. Isn't that cool? They had Photoshop in the 30s. Now, I don't know how they did that, but I'm impressed with that. Anyway, it was a really iconic place. And I want to talk about, first of all, the place that it is. Then I want to talk about the people that were involved at this place and then the experiences that the people had together at this place and what it meant for Kanab and for this area. So to tell you a little bit about that and this building, let me start with just showing you, and this is from the Historical Register, the lady who put this together back in 2002 to get on the Historical Register. I got all this from her. It's really kind of cool. Starts off with, first of all, and this Parry Lodge is right across the street. You cannot miss it. So it has half of the block. Brigham Young showed up here in 1870 when Kanab was laid out, and he gave these two sections to Jacob Hamblin, who was nicknamed the Buckskin Apostle. He's known as he's in the Cowboy Hall of Fame as having traveled the farthest distance of anybody on a horse, 60,000 miles during his lifetime, and he went back and forth across this area and so forth. And he then, the very first structure built was this little cabin that was built by James Adair in 1871. And that's kind of a key place for Jacob Hamblin, because that's where Jacob Hamblin lived for 7 years when he was here helping to keep the peace between the Mormon pioneers and the Navajos and the Paiutes and so forth. But it was also key, if any of you know the history of John Wesley Powell, there's no way John Wesley Powell would have been able to do what he'd done without Jacob Hamblin, to be able to go and keep peace, but also to create food caches and supply caches all along the Colorado River and so forth. And so that was a key little structure for John Wesley Powell. And of course, John Wesley Powell's mapping was done over here by the old elementary school. That's where they named the Grand Canyon, right over there. Matter of fact, you should go over and see the monument. It's pretty cool. We're going to actually create another monument for it here later down the road. Anyway, next thing was, first house gets built in 1892 there. I mean, the real house. The other one was a little cabin. And this was built by Justin Johnson. And that today, if you go in the Parry Lodge and walk up to the front desk, that's the living room of this house. That structure is still there. And so then they built the barn. I don't know why it took these guys 18 years to build the barn, but it did. And then this next family came in, and it was the Gideon Finley family. And I forgot to mention on this first one, the Johnson family, they had 5 daughters. And then these guys had 6 daughters. So this block was really dominated by a bunch of little girls playing and stuff like that. And that's kind of key to Parry Lodge further down the road. Then we have finally in 1928, Chauncey Perry came and he bought the house from the Johnsons. And this is the beginning of Parry Lodge. He put in these little cottages, which were in the 30s, were super popular. And they're actually becoming popular again today as these places get restored and so forth. And this is a picture from the 30s, what you can see these little cottages were like and stuff. It's really pretty cool for a little town in, Kanab, 1930s. And this is what it looked like. And as you can see, and this is just right out front of the Kanab Center looking towards it. Then the Perry brothers, his other 2 brothers, got involved and they really expanded a lot more, added more cottages and so forth. And this is about the time that then they're going to start then attracting Hollywood and so forth. I thought this was really cool. If you look at this, these guys, Frank Lloyd Wright invented the carport at Usania, the subdivision they created back in the Midwest called Usania. That was the first place to have carports. Well, the Perry brothers were right behind him, and they had little carports right here by each one of the places they stayed. I thought that was pretty innovative of them to do that. And then this is their little cottage courts. This is, again, from postcards that they had at the time. So, and here again, I love this picture. I think it's totally staged, but, it really does give a feeling of what was going on at the Parry Lodge. And I love this brochure. I think it's kind of fun. The different things that are missing off of this map. There is no road there yet, going from Kanab over to St. George, which is what we go on all the time. And the Perry brothers were always promoting US Highway 89. They did a lot to make it possible to get better roads to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. They were very, very involved in, encouraging the state and federal governments to, make improvements so that we can make it there. I like the rates here. Check it out. If you can have a room for $2 to $3, but if you don't want a bath, you can get it for $1.50. You know what I mean? Can you imagine that checking into a place? Well, do you want a bath? No, well, no, we'll give it to you for a little bit less. You know what I mean? Kind of different, isn't it? Anyway, a little more expansion happened in the 40s. They added a fountain in here, which is kind of a key thing, and then they added more rooms up here. And this fountain, which was a favorite of a lot of the young people who lived in Kanab, would come down and visit this. And this is the fountain. This is it right over here where that was at. And then in the 50s, some interesting things happened. First of all, there was a fire over here at the Adair cabin, which was by that time was known as the Black Cat. And the Black Cat was this place where people like Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin and stuff would go have poker games and mix their drinks and stuff like that. And because this was where a lot of Hollywood was staying with all the movies that were being made in Kanab and so forth. This was the place they were staying. They weren't really staying anyplace else. And they think that what happened was somebody was smoking a cigarette and butt got down in some crack because this was just an old dry tinder place and it burned down. And also during this time, this is a big deal. John Wayne came to do a movie here and all they had was the fountain. And he complained to Whit Perry and said, I need a pool. And he says, well, I can't afford to build a pool. And so John Wayne offered that if he would build the pool before he came to do his next movie, he would pay for half of the cost of the pool. So that pool that we have today over there, this is, of course, in the 50s. And I love these shots, these stage shots at the pool. Kind of cool. That was made possible because of John Wayne paying for half of the cost of that pool. So that's kind of a cool story. Anyway, and that's what it looked like at that time. Kind of a cool little iconic. When you go over there and look at it now, it's white and black. But I've been up on the roof and checked it, and that roof is still there. The red roof is there, and then it's covered with a green colored roof, and then it's got the shake roof on top of it. So it's still all there. And this is what the sign I love. I hope we can get our sign back to looking like that instead of the colors that it is now. I thought that was really iconic. Okay, then in the 70s, lots of expansion happened there. A lot of more rooms got added here and more rooms back here. And the old Barton Playhouse was created. It was a melodrama there. That happened in the 71, 72. I was like about 14 years old during that time. And I actually went over and helped do some of the renovation of that barn. I remember thinking, this is the stupidest idea you guys ever had. Why are you doing something with a barn? Of course, I'm 14. So it turned out to be a good thing. And this is a brochure. I love this brochure from the 70s. In the 70s, could we come up with any more obnoxious colors to put in a room? You know what I mean? Anyway, kind of fun. Then the Heaton family bought it in the 80s. They added the dining room, really made the dining room a lot bigger. And so that's basically what it looks like today. And that hasn't changed really much in 20 years. So let me go back now to the people. Of course, first off, this man here, this is Whit Perry. And Whit Perry is really known, obviously he's the point man and he's making things happen and stuff like that. But really the key of this place was all the other people involved. People like Ethel Kitchen, who was, worked there. This guy here, this is Virgil Riggs. He was the guy I was the assistant to. Not when he was that young. He was quite a bit older at the point when I was his assistant. And other people. This is Karen Albee. She became the mayor of Kanab back in the early 2000s and stuff. And then Denny's Wigwam that's across the street here, that's Dennis Judd. And he grew up just up the street, and he was very involved in the movies. And there were other people involved. This was our school superintendent here. This lady, Peggy Luck, did a great job here. This guy here, I don't know if you know who that is. That's me. So and all these pictures are taken from a book that was written about Parry Lodge, which I think that's the only property in town that has a book about it, is Parry Lodge, which kind of says something. And I didn't know I was going to be in the book. My dad wrote the page about me and submitted the picture, and it was important. The motorcycle is important in that I would work every day from 3 o'clock to 11 o'clock there, and then the next morning I would go ride my motorcycle every day for about 2 to 3 hours from about 10 to noon or 1 o'clock, and then I'd go get ready to go to work. A perfect job for a 15-year-old. I'm busy working every night till 11 o'clock, tired. I'm not going to get in trouble. So it was a good job. Anyway, There was also other than that. Now we talk about the famous people that were there. Ronald Reagan was there multiple times doing Death Valley Days and stuff like that. You had Roy Rogers was there. I mean, this is Tim Conway and Don Knotts and these guys and stuff like that doing Apple Dumpling Gang and other things, and George Hamilton. And so they had a lot of, the famous folks too. And I mean, they had them by the droves. I mean, these are just common pictures. I'm just showing you some of these, of all these groups that they'd come in, and they would always gather because it was like a family thing. I mean, you came to Kanab, it was different than Hollywood. They were having an experience that was unlike anything they were having down in Hollywood. This was a town of 1,300 people. It was the most remote place considered at one time in America because it was the furthest location away from a railroad. That's how they determined what was the most remote location in America, and that's what Kanab was. And so Whit Perry's always in every one of these pictures. Anyway, so they had all these groups. This was just a common thing. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, I remember being over there, and these guys goes, "Hey, that's a movie star over there." His name was Ben Johnson, if I remember right. So we got to get his autograph. I go, "Why?" It's a piece of paper with a guy's name on it, whatever. And we all went over and got it, and I think I lost it by the next day. Anyway, the experiences. I love this picture. This is when they were making a film at Parry Lodge. The whole film was filmed at Parry Lodge. I'll tell a little more about that in a minute. But I love this guy standing up on here in his swimming suit or whatever, and the guys. Somebody showed up. There was no horses in this movie, so this obviously is just a local guy riding by, wants to stop and see what's going on at Parry's. And you got some kids over here and so it was an experience thing that went on. I remember when we heard that Farrah Fawcett was in town at the Red Hills. I was 16. We were all dragging Maine. Everybody was dragging Maine in front of Red Hills to see Farrah Fawcett. She was not there. That was a total rumor. Anyway, we thought we'd see her out on a balcony. Anyway, these are all pictures. This is a movie star, but everybody else here are all local people that were in movies. This was an article in Life magazine, and we got a lot of publicity. Life magazine, Saturday Evening Post, things like that. This is Ethel Kitchen here, of course, Whit. These are local gals. These are all this is a local girl. She's a stand-in. This is Harold Mace. He was our local photographer. Cowhide Adams, anyway, these were all people that was just part of the life of being and doing that. I love this. I love this. Dan Frost, the town's Mormon bishop. And then it says that he was, as well as a butcher, specializes in the roles of sheriff, rancher, wrangler, and even desperado. I've been a Mormon bishop, and I guess I could have. So was Dirk. I guess we were desperados. My favorite, Eagles, Desperado, good song. Anyway, 91-year-old guy was in the movie, and his great-great-grandchild, which was 1 year old, was also in the movie. This guy right here, Norm Swap, first guy to impound my motorcycle. I was 14, riding it around town, and he made me push it to his house and impound it and leave it for a week. No judge, nothing, just go impound, But he was in there. So, hit the too many buttons. Next, now, here's another experience. How did that plane land in Kanab? On a gravel runway. They lit the runway. They could put the word out to town to say, "Hey, we've got to light the runway. This flight is coming in from Hollywood." And they literally went and put cars up and down both sides of the runway so they could see where the runway was and landed that thing in Kanab. That's an experience. Do you think people talked about that in Kanab? Do you think the people that came on that plane talked about that? They were having an experience there. Here again, there's Whit Perry right there. That's another local guy, and these are all these Hollywood guys. This is a movie. That's the movie that was made there at Parry Lodge. I love this thing. Her golden blonde hair, her blood red lips, and her soft, warm skin. Now they were all at the mercy of the crazed killer. And so this made this movie there, and you can actually go online on YouTube and see the trailer for it, and you'll hear the guy, he's talking, he's holding her, and he's kind of in this little romantic scene. He says, "Well, we're in Kanab now," Anyway, so but think about that. They're filming this in the pool that John Wayne helped build, and then this is the lady. This is the one who ends up getting killed in the movie. Her name is Mamie Van Durham or something like that. And you can see there's probably guys that work on the crew back in the background. Here again, experiences that they're having. This was McKenna's Gold that they filmed when I was about 12. And kind of a not politically correct little title there. You know what I mean? And then they had to do this nude scene of this movie star swimming in this water and stuff like that. And so I've got a little quote that goes with it. I won't take the time to read it all, but basically they couldn't get the water to work out. They added coloring and everything, but it always looked murky, and it looked like, instead of look like just dirty water, it was just dirty blue water. And so they gave up on that, and I don't know what they ended up doing because the water was totally too opaque. Anyway, all kinds of different experiences. This was making Daniel Boone here, people get involved. Hell of another experience here. So if you were, as a kid, going to Kanab High School and you were serious with a girl and it's junior prom, you're going to Parry Lodge. You know, that's the kind of experience it was, is you're going to go to Parry Lodge. Now, I never took a girl to Parry Lodge, you know, so I never did that. But I remember friends and stuff, well, we're going to Parry's. I go, oh, man, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on this date. No way. We're not doing that. You know what I mean? But it was known as the place to go. That was just the way it was. And I love this menu. This is a menu from back then. Some of the prices here are great. We can get herself a country club open sandwich for 95 cents, you know, and so it was a cool thing. Anyway, what I'm going to summarize this up with saying here is this. I have a good friend who always would say to me that, you know, if you take time and you then add some experiences to that as relating to working with people, spending time with them, and then you have experiences with them, that what you end up with is you'll end up with a relationship. And that's the key, is time plus experiences equals a relationship. And I think about that, and I think about Parry Lodge, and I think about Kanab, and how that really is the case. That when you think about these people here, every one of these people in this picture is a movie star, an extra, or a stuntman, or whatever, that has for years, literally, I don't know how long Western Legends has been going on. I think it goes 22, 23 years. They still coming back this place because they had an experience here with people, relationships were developed, and so forth. And so these people come back again and again. Of course, that's in front of Parry Lodge, and that's always where they go, is to Parry Lodge, because that's where those memories were made and stuff. And so I think that this Parry Lodge for Kanab is a super meaningful place. It's a super meaningful place for all of southern Utah. It was very impactful of the development of North Rim as far as the tourist trade and everything. I mean, it wasn't just the Parry brothers, it was the people of Kanab. You know, as part of us purchasing this property and everything, one thing that I'm working on personally is we're establishing an alumni association of those people who worked at Parry Lodge. I don't think you have alumni associations for Motel 6. You know what I mean? But as I have put the word out for this, people, they just go, oh yeah, I want to be part of it. I've got this story to tell, or this happened, or that happened. It's interesting how that's the case, because we spent time together, we had experiences, and so now we have relationships, not just to a place, but also the people. So I hope you'll go over there, enjoy it. Go in the front. There's all kinds of pictures, and anybody can walk in. You don't have to be a guest. You can look at the pictures, and you just get a feel of the place. Thank you.